The year was 2024. Borderlands allegedly made a movie. A spitting sound effect somehow became a podcast. I was busy editing this video. And the star of today's tale, Sorey, was about to attend a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament. But not as a player. Sorey was going to be a judge for this event, and considering it was a fairly small tournament compared to the bigger events he'd judged in the past, he went to it expecting a nice, chill day of Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh boy was he wrong. The day began, and for the most part went by quite smoothly, with Sorey only having to give out a couple of rulings here and there, and that lasted right up until he was ordered to judge the semi-final. Sorey walked up to the table and did a final check to make sure everything was prepared whilst he waited for the players to arrive. A few moments go by before a man, roughly in his mid-30s, sat down on one side of the table, followed by a boy roughly half his age, sitting down across from him. At first, everything seemed pretty normal. Both players exchanged some greetings before setting up their fields and getting straight into their first game. For this video, we're going to refer to the 30-year-old as Michael and the boy as Jeffrey. Jeffrey was on Labyrinth, a deck centered around summoning big ladies with effects designed to have crazy synergies with trap cards, and was generally considered a more grindy deck. Meanwhile, Michael was playing Snake Eye, which at the time was considered by far the best deck available, with a playstyle that I have a lot of trouble trying to describe, as it's just kind of a load of bullshit that does absolutely fucking everything. It's safe to say, Michael was favoured in this matchup. The duel began, and the first game was rather uneventful, with Michael sort of just Snake Eye comboing all over the place, leading to a very quick concession from Jeffrey. So we move on to game 2. And this is where the match started getting a little bit derailed. Jeffrey went first, and being a trap-focused deck, simply set a few cards before passing the turn. Michael prepared to begin comboing, but unlike the first game, this time, it didn't go very smoothly. At the beginning of the turn, Jeffrey activated Welcome Labyrinth to summon Lovely Labyrinth to the field. All you need to know about this card is it prevents monster effects from being used in response to traps. Keep this in mind for later. Michael tried activating Bonfire, which was hit by an Ash Blossom from Jeffrey's hand, which negates the effect. He tried normal summoning Snake Eye Ash, which was immediately met with an Effect Veiler, which once again negated the effect. The frustration began building up, and it was very visible from Michael's face. Jeffrey activated Big Welcome to summon another Labyrinth monster from his deck, and it was at this point Michael attempted to use an Ash Blossom of his own. You can't do that, Jeffrey stated as he slowly moved his hand to point at the Lovely on the field. Michael didn't get the picture and just looked confused as to why both his opponent and the judge were now staring directly at him. Jeffrey began trying to explain, but before he could even finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a rather loud "Judge!" Why Michael decided to scream this out while Sorey was literally less than a meter away and staring directly at him, I couldn't tell you, but Sorey simply responded by also pointing at the Lovely on the field. Michael's response was to claim, "That card doesn't even apply here. Ash Blossom isn't even a monster." Sorey stared blankly at Michael, trying to process what he'd just heard. "I'm sorry, could you please repeat that?" "Ash Blossom isn't a monster, it's a hand trap. Therefore, a trap card?" Now for those of you that don't play Yu-Gi-Oh, let me give you a little bit of context. An incredibly common term in this game is hand trap. This is an unofficial term used to describe basically any card of any type that can be used from hand as disruption. Keyword here being unofficial. Ash Blossom most definitely fell into this category, but like I said, this was an unofficial term and it wasn't even used to describe trap cards 90% of the time. Sorey simply picked up the Ash Blossom and pointed at the monster type, before getting berated by a bunch of screaming, followed by Ugh, useless judge. Saray gave him a warning and reminded him that if there was another outburst like this, he'd be thrown out of the event. Michael scooped up his cards, so we move on to Game 3. Now before Game 3 started, Saray heard his name being called behind him. He'd been called over to another table to assist with a call. He was only gone about 3 minutes before the loud screeching begun. He turned around and rushed back on over to the table, noticing Jeffrey was the one causing the scene this time. He sat there completely bawling his eyes out and chucking a tantrum. "What's going on? Are you okay?" He ate my lady. I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? In between sobs, Jeffrey repeated exactly what Saray thought he'd heard. He ate my lady. He slowly turned his head towards Michael. Did you really eat his card? No, of course not. Why would I fucking do that? Saray turned to the small crowd of people that had gathered after hearing the commotion. Did any of you guys see him eat a card? All he was met with was a bunch of really confused glares. At this point, the head judge, who'd also caught on to the commotion, approached the table and picked up Jeffrey's deck before skimming through it. After counting only 39 cards, he gave him a game loss due to the deck not being of legal size. This did not go down well with Jeffrey, who only amplified his screaming. So he was thrown out of the store. Saray, being the good Samaritan, stayed outside with him whilst they waited for the parents to arrive, even offered him one of his own ladies from his binder. The entire time, mind you, Jeffrey continued to claim his innocence, stating sternly and repeatedly that his card had been eaten. A few days later, Saray was chilling with one of his friends who'd played at the event. His friend mentioned that apparently after the tournament, a bunch of players from the event went out for a bit of a social drinking session, getting themselves rather intoxicated. Someone from this group had started bragging about a rather crazy story that had happened to them that day. Something about winning a match by eating his opponent's card. Yeah, it turns out Jeffrey wasn't lying. Saray immediately contacted the store owner to see about getting this dude a lifetime ban, and sure enough, he got banned. From that point on, thankfully, Saray never had to deal with Michael again. And so that's going to mark the end of today's tale. Thank you so much, Saray, for sharing your story in the comment section of one of my previous videos. And as per usual, if you too have a story from your time playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And would like to have it recreated in this series, feel free to write it out in the comments down below. Just make sure to leave enough context and detail so I can turn it into a full video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to see more stories just like this one, I've created a full playlist of this series which I will leave a link to at the top of the description. Or you can click that little card on screen now. Thank you guys for watching and I hope to see you in the next one. Laters.